This is the story of how I got a mortgage in my home country of Moldova and kept it just for one day. Oh wait, don't jump into conclusions just yet. It was very well thought and calculated. At least now I can certainly say so, as it helped me double my investment and have a sweet exit, which was the cornerstone of my future first investment in Dubai. Are you curious how this worked? And is it even possible? Moreover, with the appropriate advice and financial precaution, you can do it as well. Let me tell you how. And if I managed to capture your attention by now, please drop a thumbs up to support the YouTube algorithm for this video and subscribe if you feel very generous. You'd ask me, how did this madness even occur? And why would one ever even think about mortgaging an apartment for just one day? Sounds definitely silly, but not when you invest the right way and you can actually leverage other people's money, in this case banks' money, for your own interests. And that's exactly what I did. Back in 2019, when I was just returning from London to my home country of Moldova, I had some spare money that I actually initially planned for spending them on buying my first investment apartment, or even the one that I would potentially live in London, and decided to invest those money in my home country because I found the right deal and thought that this is a unique opportunity, being the first investor in that complex and also have some greater potential future returns. My specific deal was consisting of paying 50% down payment to the developer and then paying the remaining 50% just after the handover. So I would have enough time to actually approach the bank and mortgage the remaining sum of money, and that would be basically the case for me not putting any money whatsoever besides just the down payment of 50%. Well, at that time I thought that's a pretty cool deal and it's not so risky, so why not? I went in and actually bought 2 apartments at the time because I was just super interested and I think very confident that this would work out. But I guess for the first deal you should be like that, because otherwise you would be just shaking all year round. Next day I went into the office of the developer and I told them that I want to get 2 apartments, 2 one-bedrooms at the time, and I pay my down payment of 50%, which wasn't too much because it's Eastern Europe and in Moldova the prices were pretty low at that time. Now they are definitely rising. We can see about 15-20% increase per year, which is quite crazy, but it works. Specifically if you're buying an off-plan and you just wait for the windows to be already put, that's how we say it back home, that's when the price actually starts to increase, and you can also approach those other buyers that would potentially approach the banks and get their mortgages on those apartments. With that, my deal only consisted of me paying those 50% down payment, so I actually packed my bags, left to Bali and started my property future journey in there, without even worrying that my 50% down payment is just being used there or that I need to pay any other payments throughout the year as a payment plan if you would have it in Dubai, for example, or anywhere else in the world. But things quickly turned around when 2 years passed and I actually had to pay the remaining amount of money, and I went back home to sort this situation. By that time, the prices at that specific location and also in that specific block of flats that I invested in went really high. So I'm talking about X2 or even slightly higher. That's when I realized that I don't think that I would actually want to keep one or even both for myself, rent them out or anything else, because just the returns were so high that it would be just a little bit silly to not profit of this occasion, just sell the investment and reinvest those money into something else or something new in either that market or like I did in Dubai. That's when I went to the bank, approached them and told them that I want to mortgage those apartments. One of them was already able to be mortgaged because it was finished. Another one was slightly unfinished, so it was kind of approaching the handover phase, but it wasn't ready or accepted by the bank to be actually taken into the mortgage. That's why I took my time to start and mortgage the first apartment, and just put it straight into the sales market right away because I was thinking that it will just be a pretty quick deal. It actually turned that I had to wait. That's what I did until one day they told me that I have to pay for the second apartment, and I actually didn't have the money for that, and I also had to mortgage that apartment. Besides everything, I was actually also liable to pay all those mortgage fees and all the mortgage monthly payments. So this was becoming a little bit stressful for me, and it was definitely one of the more risky hustler stressful situation that I had in my life, because our banks are very traditional and you have to submit thousands of documents and proofs that everything is all right, that you can be accepted by them. Honestly, at that time I didn't even have the money to pay all those fees and mortgaging that second apartment, which created even more problems to myself. And that's exactly when I started to act quickly and try to find either an investor or just a potential buyer for that apartment. Also, I told myself that since I already have the first apartment and I was already doing viewings for that, so I had my agents who were taking care of it, and seemed like there were a lot of people who were interested. At the same time, when I received the notice that I have to pay for the second amount, I also realized that I can approach the bank and actually tell them that the apartment is 90% finished, because that was the case at that time, and the bank would have been able to offer me the mortgage. Also, these opportunities opened up to the mass market because everyone now could have mortgaged those apartments. There was a slight privilege to the actual initial investors, so if you were actually buying off plan, you would have been able to mortgage it much quicker than the ones who are mass market and they just require 20% down payment and then 80% LTV from the bank, which was the case of the buyer who got my apartment. And I'm talking about the first apartment. That's exactly how I did it. And it wasn't the easiest thing because I had to basically pay off the apartment and then get all the documents from the bank and from the development company that it's fully owned by me, and only then I sold it to the buyer who also mortgaged that apartment. So it was quite a big hassle, but it ended up pretty well. But that was in the future. At that specific moment, I had to solve two problems. I needed to pay for my mortgage payments for that first apartment that I just mentioned to you, and I also had to sort out how am I going to mortgage the second, where am I going to get all the money for the fees and for the monthly payments that will be coming up as well. Well, because the apartments were already considered finished, and at that time everyone could have been able to buy them through the normal 20% mortgage, I actually approached some of the potential buyers for my first apartment and told them that I have this second apartment that I can offer for a slightly lower price. Because at the end of the day, I was thinking that if I sell this one at X2 and the next apartment or the first apartment that I initially put on the market, I sell it later and I'll just have an X3, X3.5, then the average is pretty sweet. So why not just solve this problem, get my money back, and also get all that profit just slightly later during the year. That's exactly how I found the potential buyer who was actually pretty ready to buy it in cash, which was much easier for me because I would tell the bank that I have the buyer, get the documents from them, which basically means that I'm able to get the down payment from the buyer, then pay back the bank the principal that I owe them, and of course the small interest that I had for that one day, besides all the other mortgage costs that I incurred because of asking for the mortgage, so all the fees related to that. And that's how this mortgage actually saved my life, because I wasn't really sure how am I gonna pull this one, because I only had 7 days to pay back the developer and I didn't have the money to pay for the mortgage. The next day I went to the bank and I told them that I got the buyer and I want them to release a statement that I'm able, it's a document actually, that tells the buyer that I am actually given permission from the bank, because they are also a co-owner since you have the mortgage with them, and that I am able to sell it to them and request for the down payment. And since I offered this buyer a pretty good price, even for that time, because nowadays, after 5 years, the price has doubled again. Honestly, that's quite insane. I don't think it's worth it nowadays, but people actually sell it, they furnish it, and even triple the price, which is just madness. But that's the case, and it worked for some people. It worked for me as well. Then after I got the documents, I went to the buyer. I got the second portion that actually we went together to the bank so he can pay it off to them, and then I would be able to close the mortgage with the bank. So basically, I didn't even have it for 2 days. I only had it for a full working day. I went in and got the mortgage at around 9 to 10 a.m. and then I closed it at around 6 p.m. So the end of day working hours. Isn't it crazy? Like, honestly, even me telling this to the camera right now, it seems insane, but it actually worked. So it's quite an interesting case that I felt like I should share with you guys. So if you actually like watching this right now, leave a thumbs up below and drop the comments. I'm really curious what you think about this. After I paid my mortgage back and got the money from the buyer as well and returned all my investment, which means that basically I returned that 50% that I paid to the developer plus the profit that I made on the deal. We then went together with the buyer to register the property in his own name. That was actually the next day, so it was basically a 2-day deal. Went through all those services, signed all the papers, and the new buyer was having his own keys for that apartment, and I got out of the deal with only one mortgage for 1 day. Besides this, there was another part that I didn't mention. When I got the mortgage in the morning, I actually had to ask the bank to release the money to the developer so they can pay the developer and we clear out everything with them, and then I start paying the mortgage to the bank. So that was a really financially difficult deal, but that's actually the cornerstone and the base that I got. It was much more worth than any kind of education possible, any kind of university degree, because it taught me how to be resilient to all these things happening, how to be patient, chilled, and also rational at the same time, to take very quick decisions and to manage the stress pretty well, because that was a hell of a stressful day. So that's about it. That's the story of how I got a mortgage back in my home country for just one single day. A crazy day, to be honest, but it was amazing, and I hope you liked this experience that I told you. And if you did so, please drop your comments below, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.